All right, replay crew. 9 August 2024. We're going to see if we're actually live again. Take two here in a moment. And there we go. Can I get a 5x5, please? Who said that in the chat? I see you, Jupiter Mojo. Bear, just give Elon some money for Starlink. Well, homie, joke's on you. I have 2 Starlinks. And Starlink, the up-down latency for a high-speed live streaming. We use them for disaster relief. But allegedly, if you power cycle your internet shit, it works better. So here we are. Bear Independent Brief, 9 August 2024, brought to you by Yahweh your Elohim, the Lord your God, the fine people over at Patreon. Link is in the description of refugemedical.com, the only prep that you can use before the world ends. We're going to talk about international intel sent in by y'all to intel@bearindependent.com. I don't have my water bottle. My life is falling apart. We're going to talk about Ukraine's incursion into Russia, not Russia's incursion into Ukraine, but the other way around. And we're going to talk about, international markets are on fire because that's how things work around here. Like, subscribe, share. What does Andy Frizella say? Don't be a hoe. Share the show. Yeah, do that. I would appreciate that. 9 August 2024, after hitting record highs multiple times this year, stocks have finally begun to wobble, or more accurately, quote, the floor suddenly fell out and the descent was rapid, end quote. In the words of one Barron's article, Wall Street's fear gauge experienced a historic surge at the beginning of the week, reaching its third highest level ever, as $6 trillion were wiped from global stocks in the span of 3 weeks. This came as a violent unwind of the global yen carry trade had worldwide impacts. Journalist Matthew Fox with Market Insider succinctly explained, quote, the carry trade refers to investors borrowing money at near zero interest rates in Japan and then redeploying that cash into higher yielding assets around the world, such as stocks and bonds. In other words, there's no return on investment for Japan because they're providing the money at zero interest or close to zero interest, and then it's being invested elsewhere. Last week, the Bank of Japan suddenly hiked interest rates by 15 basis points. Basis points is a gay term. 15 basis points is what, 1.5%? Yeah, I don't know why they just don't use percentages, but whatever. By 15 basis points amid expected income rate cuts from the American Federal Reserve, which has led to a stronger yen. That created a surge of margin calls and selling off of stocks worldwide. There's water and coffee, Steel City. I know, my coffee cup's in the other room too. I frankly did not expect to be doing a take two this morning. I was going to go shoot sheep in the face and begin butchering. In fact, I already have my young men preparing the fire for the gut pile. And my wife was like, you should do your brief. I was like, okay, I'll do my brief. You're smart. You're a wise helpmeet. You're a good rib. You're correct. I'll do my brief. And so I'm back doing my brief. Wallerstein of Yardeni Research said, quote, it was quite literally the most popular and easiest carry trade, and carry trades work until they don't. So everyone was in on it. It was super, super crowded. Everyone was overextended, and plenty of people were catching up to the trade using leverage just to get quick exposure because they didn't want to miss out on those gains. In other words, if you give people free money and apply a healthy dollop of greed, the economy falls apart. There was a sharp reversal of the CBOE or CBO volatility index known as the VIX, which analysts say demonstrates that the worst of it is likely over. The New York Times published an opinion piece that described it as drama that was akin to a toddler tantrum. However, Societe Generale's chief global currency strategist, Kit Joux, who comes up with these freaking words? This is a journalism thing, by the way. They're like, let's use the biggest freaking words that we can use to make people think that we're smart. It's actually just a pain in the ass. And then people apply these like massive titles to like who they are, their positions, what they do. And it's like, what do you do? I sell stuff. Okay. So you're maybe not the international cosmic director of B2B relationships. Like you sell shit. Okay, it's a salesperson. That's who you are. Got it. Kit Jukes, some asshole from somewhere, said that the risks now lie with what tech stocks in the United States do. Quote, if that market keeps falling, it will affect the economy and the Fed. The labor market remains tight. The economy is still growing. Meh, barely. That would change if equities fell too far or fell too fast. It would change if the August jobs report at the start of September was very weak, which, end quote, which I would estimate it's going to be, because I don't know if you guys have like been outside there in the world here lately in the last 5 years, but especially in the last 5 days, maybe. Confidence inspiring is not what I would call it. I wouldn't say, you know what, guys, we're on the upswing here. Things are looking good. They're looking good. I don't know what just made me think of this, but if you're on social media, there's been some interesting posts going around of Kamala Harris literally wearing like bodysuits and lingerie, actual pictures of her, not doctored, from when she was literally a whore, right? And now she's the presidential nominee of the Democratic Party. Somebody in the comments was like, don't call them the Democrats, they're the Socialist Party. Hey, asshole, they call themselves the Democrats, and so that's how we're going to refer to them for, brevity and sake of communication around here. Yeah, but actually dressed up like a whore. Imagine that. And like, this is who we're running, or who they are running for the presidential candidate. And then you got Tim Walz, right? Have you seen the controversy about this guy? I was a command sergeant major. Actually, no, you weren't. I was in a combat zone. Actually, no, you weren't. Yeah, which, we're going to let the internet do what the internet does, because they're already eviscerating that guy. In addition to the carry trade issue, the conflict in the Middle East is contributing to investor fears since Iran, another more of the grammar Nazis in the comments, since Iran is a key oil producer. Interestingly, one of the other causes behind this event listed by Fortune was that, quote, recession fears are back in vogue, end quote. Headlines read, quote, the Fed appears to have finally created the recession it wanted, from MarketWatch. Recession risks rise as consumers turn cautious, New York Times. And, quote, the stock market's recession playbook is in full effect, from Markets Insider. And Jamie Dimon says he still sees a recession. Jamie Dimon, Dijon Mustard, that guy, says he still sees a recession on the horizon, end quote, from CNBC. It turns out that Jamie Dijon Mustard, the JP Morgan Chase CEO, actually said that, quote, America is alive and well, end quote, and adheres to his forecast of a 40% chance of economic slowdown. It appears recession fears are indeed vogue. I don't know about Jamie Dijon, y'all. I know he's probably smarter than me. He definitely has more money than I do. He also like runs a bank, which is like one of the easiest industries in the world. You literally just print money out of thin air. Yeah, like we need to, if we were scumbags, we would start the International Bank of Bear Nation, right? And then it just, but you shall not lend to your brother at interest. Okay, we won't lend to each other at interest. We'll just lend to everybody else. You know what we'll do? We'll just buy a bunch of Raytheon stock and then vote for Lindsey Graham. And boom, insta-billionaires, trillionaires, quadrillionaires. At the rate this inflation is going, we're quintillionaires. And you'd be like, dude, we're banking. Well, we got so much money. It's like actually a loaf of bread is $1 quintillion now. Yay, socialism. But whatever. It's fine. Which is when you think about it, like, and what should I invest in? Seeing all these memes on the internet right now. I called my stockbroker and I said, what should I invest in? And his response was canned goods and ammunition. Ha, ha, ha. Dude, some of us have been saying that forever and a day. I've been saying that for 19 years, 19 years, just shy of 2 decades. And I've been saying it on camera for 7 years. And it's like, hey, normies, if you're brand new to preparedness, welcome. You got a lot of catching up to do. That doesn't mean you should chew off all your fingernails and just get spun up into a tizzy and have an anxiety attack on your kitchen floor. But you're behind the power curve. It's time. Like it's time, because these assholes in power, the elite upper echelons of international society, are all the way going to continue to do what they do, which is cause problems so that they can generate the solutions, so they can control the outcome, so that they can profit. That's called the Hegelian dialectic. It's been used against mankind forever. For it goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Did God really say that he? Oh, look, here's a problem: thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Yeah, it's been happening for a long time. It's been weaponized against us, and most people are so freaking retarded they can't even see it happening, because most people have been indoctrinated by the public school systems. And not all public schools are created equal. I acknowledge that, but most people are morons, and they've just never been taught, or both, one or the other, or both. And so they're like, well, I don't see what the problem is. I like that guy up there behind the podium, and I'm going to vote for him because America, or for personal freedoms, or whatever. It's like, dude, it's a dog and pony show. They're all acting. They're all acting. Literally. Okay. So Kamala Harris was a whore to actors, and that's not conjecture, and that's not defamation. It's true. Okay. Donald Trump was an actor on TV. Now, he's also a businessman. I get it. But like, they're all, Zelensky was an actor, right? Like, they're all, it's a dog and pony show, bro. When C-SPAN's on, they get out there on the Senate floor and they just yell at each other and hurl insults and say, "Sir, I will have you put in shackles," or whatever they say, right? And then when the cameras are off, they just walk across the aisle, shake hands. They're like, "Hey, man, you want to go get some scotch later?" Yeah, sounds great. It's all a show. It's all a show. But my America. Okay. All right. Who's here? 964, yo. Bless you. It's all a club we're not in. Correct, bitter grenade. Even the best horse in the glue factory was handpicked. 100%. What's up, everybody in the chat? Speaking of Zelensky is still an actor, Ukraine wants U.S. help to retain part of the Russian border region. This is coming from RT, which is reporting from the Washington Post. Officials in Kyiv, which is Ukraine, capital of Ukraine. I'm sorry, the capital of Ukraine, I believe, is Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. Officials in Kyiv reportedly believe easing restrictions on the use of ATACMS missiles could give them leverage in talks with Moscow. So when we provided them ATACMS, which is what, U.S. Army Tactical Missile System, or whatever that freaking acronym is, because the DoD loves acronyms. In fact, whatever the thing is, insert thing here, it's not cool unless it has a mouthful of an acronym, right? So when we, meaning literally you and I, paid for, which entirely different conversation, if they can print money, why do we pay taxes? This is something Andy's been talking about on his show a lot lately, and I agree with him on this. If they can just print money, then why do we pay taxes? Because the taxes is a mechanism of control to keep you under their thumb. That's why. Oh, but it's to fund the government. Is it? But they can print money, and they spend more money than you give them. So why? Why are you paying taxes? Oh, yeah. So that you can't actually rise up. It's to keep you at whatever your current socioeconomic status is, so you can't accrue enough wealth and power to be a threat to them. It's a control mechanism. But I digress. These ATACMS that we paid for, allegedly, with our taxpayer dollars that we sent over there, were told explicitly to Ukraine, you cannot use these to attack Russia. You cannot deploy these outside of the Ukrainian border, blah, 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 blah. Don't do it. If you do it, or else. Okay, cool. Well, now Ukraine's like, hey, by the way, those missiles that you gave us, right, shifting the Overton window, you ask for a little bit, and then a little bit more, then a little bit more, then a little bit more. Kyiv wants the U.S. to allow the use of long-range ATACMS missiles to support its cross-border incursion into Russia's Kursk region. WAPO reported on Thursday, citing a senior official. Such approval could reportedly give Ukraine a stronger hand in talks with Moscow. Now, understand, the Ukraine war is all the way being perpetrated at the direction of the United States of America. And so what's this whole dog and pony show back and forth of DC says you can't, Keith says, can we please? I don't know. We'll have to talk about all that shit's already figured out. This is just the dance. They're just doing the dance on camera for the rest of us so they can maintain some illusion of some type of air quote democratic process here. Oh, trust me, the politicians are working diligently on this. Oh, really? No, they're working diligently on their personal stock portfolios and extracting wealth and capital from you and from me. That's what they're doing. This is already figured out. And if it's not figured out, they pick up the phone and they say, hey, bro, can we use these missiles? And it's like, yeah, you can in 3 weeks, like we talked about. But right now, just keep dancing. Yeah, roger that. Thanks. Click. Okay. It's already figured out. So these ATACMS missiles being in Ukraine, it's intentional. The United States sent them there. The idea that they're going to be used to potentially attack targets inside of Russia, intentional. What does that mean? It's an escalation. Ukraine is and always has been a proxy war between the United States and Russia. And so now we have these assholes in power in Washington, D.C., who are not just fighting Russians in Ukraine. Now they want to fight Russians in Russia. Bro, they are going to all the way turn the volume up on this war for a bunch of reasons. Number one, the economy is shit and war is good for economies. Number two, they need the distraction because Kamala Harris and Tom Walz, whatever that guy's name is, he sucks. They're going to try and steal the election again. All the polling is bullshit. All the polling, like, oh, Kamala's leading Trump by 4 points. Says who? Like, what did you poll a bunch of third graders? Which picture do you like more? Dude, there's no way on an accurate poll that she's leading anything. She got $281 million in donations in 1 week. Yeah, no, she didn't. She got $91 million that came from Biden's campaign fund, which there's questions per the SEC, or not the SEC, the other one. Whatever that agency is, there's questions as to whether or not that was even legal because she wasn't even the nominated candidate at the time that she received those funds. And then the other $150-ish million came from a handful of Democratic super donors. None of that was generated grassroots. Nobody likes her, including the Democrats. Like the whole thing it's whose line is it anyway? The points are made up, or the rules are made up, and the points don't matter. But so they know that their candidate is incredibly weak and is incredibly unpopular. So they need a war over there. And what better way if/when they steal election number 2 or election number 27, for all we know, to help put down dissent in this country than to take all the patriotic young men and now young women, thanks to the most recent National Defense Authorization Act, and send them halfway around the world so they can go over there and bleed and die, and so that they're not a threat here domestically on our soil. And at the same time, Lindsey Graham and his friends can extract a $13 trillion in wealth from underneath the ground of Ukraine. And that's just the Russia-Ukraine, United States thing in Ukraine. That's not also Russia, U.S. versus each other in a proxy war in Israel, which now they're talking about, oh, we got to have a hot war with Iran. We definitely got to do that. And everybody, like anybody that knows anything about the United States military, let alone has been in the United States military, it's like, we're going to go to war with Iran. So you take the gloves off, that's a 72-hour mission, maybe. Like that place would be a smoldering pile of rubble, being uninhabitable for the next 1,000 years if we just said, go. But they're not going to do that. They're going to drag it out as long as they can so they can continue to subjugate you. They can continue to have people in fear. They can continue to extract wealth as slowly as possible, as methodically as possible, right? Get every little last drop out of that conflict. Because if it was actually about fighting and winning America's wars, it'd be over before it began. It would be over before it began. Same thing I would submit with the Russians in Ukraine. If we wanted that to be over, it'd be over. It'd be all the way over. 4 words for you. United States Air Force. Okay? What about Space Force and all those nerds with their drones and their satellites? Like, if we really wanted to win, not that fast. Just It's not about winning. It's about the dog and pony show, and good people bleed and die, lose their best friends, come home disfigured, have their lives altered for the remainder of their time on earth because these politicians in DC are asshole, pedophilic, Satanist pieces of shit. And they are all the way willing, through just beyond the thin veneer of civility, they are all the way willing to kill and maim you and your children so they can get what they want. And we're like, which one of these assholes should I vote for this time? Bullshit. Diatribe. So anyway, Ukraine wants to attack Russia on Russian soil with attackums. That's fun. Most recent incursion from Ukraine into Russia is in let me pull this, put it up on the map. It's in the Sudza region, which if you're roughly familiar with the shape of Ukraine, it kind of, best way to describe Ukraine is it looks like a deformed yam. Sweet potato for those who are unfamiliar. And if you're looking at Ukraine, Ukraine is bisected by the Dnipro River. And if you know where Kharkiv is, or Kharkiv, which is kind of in the northeastern region of Ukraine, almost directly to the north of Kharkiv is Belgorod, Russia, just on the other side of the border. And if you go northwest of Kharkiv on the Ukrainian side, there's a little town called Sumy, Sumy, like sue me. Bear, I don't like you. Sue me, bitch. Okay. Sue me. And on the other side of the Russia-Ukraine line is this little town called Sudza. And the highway R200 runs in between these two places. That's where Ukraine is currently located, about 9 kilometers inside the Russian lines. They've thrown, reports vary anywhere between 300 and 1,000 troops at this offensive, and anywhere between dozens and hundreds of armored vehicles. And Russia's not happy about it. Russia doesn't really like the fact that Ukraine is in their sovereign territory, maiming and killing and blowing stuff up, which is an interesting stance to take because Russia's in Ukraine's sovereign territory, maiming and killing and blowing stuff up. Now, again, understanding it's all make-believe. The whole thing's make-believe. And it's make-believe in the worst way possible, because what's make-believe is the circumstances leading up to the conflict. What's not pretend is that real people die. And that's the thing that burns my ass, is that the air quote leaders of all these countries are willing to make up things. They're willing to fabricate circumstances for their gain so that real people will die. And they are all the way willing to trade your life and your livelihood for their personal benefit. You should not trust a single one of these people. Not a single one of them, regardless of their red or their blue or their whatever. Democrat, Democratic, Socialist, Republican, Libertarian, they are all willing to trade your life and the lives of your children for their personal gain. Short ropes, tall trees, line them up. And mazel tov, blessings, thank you to everybody who's currently wearing the uniform or who has formerly worn the uniform for going and fighting over there so that we don't have to fight here, which is a completely different conversation. I think it's just a matter of time before we got to fight here, because we are being undermined from the inside out. At some point, you see what happened in Bangladesh, right? What's happening in Argentina? I don't want that. But man, all the indicators are pointing in that direction. And what I want and what will be are oftentimes two very different things. If you are not tracking on all these indicators, if you don't have a fire lit under your ass to be as prepared and as independent from this broken, fragile system as possible, I beseech you, please surgically remove your head from your rectum and get serious, because I honestly think Preparedness is a bulwark against chaos. It is insurance. And I think we may have to be cashing in on these insurance policies sometime in the near future. So Ukraine is now in the Kursk region of Russia. Early on Tuesday, Ukrainian military launched a major raid on the Kursk region, Russia, breaking through the border at multiple locations. The attack was focused on the town of Sudza, located around 9 kilometers from the border. The town, which is the administrative center of the namesake district, has been subjected to continuous indiscriminate artillery and drone strikes. Now, and I know we have there's a bunch of Russian simps and a bunch of Ukrainian simps, and a bunch of those people are actually not people. They're bots all over the internet. And Bear, you don't understand. You got to watch the Telegram channel. You got to shut the hell up. Okay. I don't got a nothing. We'll just maybe leave it at that. Russia, for a fact, I know this because I know people, a few dozen people who have been or who are in Ukraine on the ground right now. Russia, for a fact, since literally the day they started, February 24th, 2022, has literally been indiscriminately and then discriminately purposefully targeting things like hospitals, ambulances, and medics on purpose. Now, that's a violation of the Geneva Conventions. Russia don't care, because it's also a highly effective tactic, because A, it's massively demoralizing, because people don't run uphill into machine gun fire unless they know there's somebody there that might be able to put them back together again. Okay, so it's a huge diminish on morale. And then also, logistically, it's wildly effective, because then your injuries turn into deaths. You don't have a higher level that you can evacuate to, Casevac or Medevac, if somebody gets injured, right? So that it all becomes prolonged field care at this point, which means at some point we need a hospital. And if there are no hospitals, if there are no doctors, if there are no ambulances, and not just ambulance like you're used to, like a truck with a box on the back, but just like passenger vans, minivans that have been turned into ambulances, pickup trucks. Yeah, they're targeting those too. And I know this firsthand from people that I know and love and trust. And so now Russia's pissed because there's indiscriminate targeting going on in the Sudza region. It's like, well, you reap what you sow. According to Russian military estimates, up to 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been involved in the attack. The personnel broke through using dozens of heavy hardware pieces, including tanks of various types, U.S. Stryker-made armored personnel carriers and other armored cars and equipment. The fighting raged through the night, continuing into Wednesday, with the Russian military conducting artillery, aerial, and ballistic missile strikes on the advancing Ukrainian forces. The incursion has been halted, with the invading force losing over 300 troops and 54 armored vehicles, including at least 6 tanks, the chief of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, told President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday. Moscow has condemned the attack, which Putin described as a large-scale provocation, with Ukrainian military conducting indiscriminate strikes on civilians, residential buildings, and ambulances. Oh, sucks when it happens to you, doesn't it? And all that being said, I still am acutely aware of the fact that there's real people who want nothing to do with this, who are being shot, stabbed, blown up, because some political elite somewhere decided we should have a war because it's good for the economy. We will literally trade blood for money. We will literally trade blood for money. And if we're patriotic enough about it, we will get the people whose blood will be spilled to cheer for it at the same time. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova suggested the attack is being used as a smokescreen for Kyiv to prolong its deadly mobilization. Legislation prolonging the drive for another 3 months was quietly signed by Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday. The Russian military is seeking to inflict a defeat on Ukraine's invading force, pushing it back across the border, Gerasimov said. Kyiv appears to be anticipating a new cross-border offensive by the Russian military. The authorities in the Sumy region, Ukraine, which border on Kursk, announced Wednesday the evacuation of civilians from areas within 10 kilometers of the border. I got to go get my water bottle. And then we're going to do the national intel. Okay, sound good? Here, you guys can look at this beautiful bear fact sitting right here. Subliminal messaging. I'll be right back. All right. Why is this bear guy from the internet yelling at me today? Why is he so worked up? Blah, 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 blah. Here's why. It's because I actually care about you. Because I actually want you to leave here better than you came here. The whole point of this channel, it's called Bear Independent, because I want people, myself included, to be independent of the broken, fragile system so that when it falls apart, you don't fall apart with it. And the world is very dangerous right now, and I don't think enough people are taking that seriously. I've had more and more and more people coming into my life lately saying, hey, and people of all kinds of backgrounds, school teachers, law enforcement, military, former and active, business owners, high net worth individuals reaching out to me and saying, hey, the world is getting a little crazy, bro. I'm like, oh, it's been crazy for a long time. It's getting downright weird and dangerous. What do we do? What do we do? How do we coordinate? How can we help each other? Indicators. All that is indicators. When I say I want you to prep, I don't mean I want you to go buy a made garbage and put it on a shelf in a closet somewhere, check the box and say, hey, I'm prepped. I got 2 weeks of freeze-dried food. I'm good to go. No, that's not going to cut it. That wouldn't get you through the power outage a couple years ago in Texas in the winter when it got cold. Okay? I mean, like, it's time to make some moves, people. If you haven't already been making moves, it's time to make some moves between what the economy is doing, what's happening geopolitically around the world, what's happening here societally in the United States of America, the porous southern border, which everybody loves to pay lip service to, but very few people actually understand what 400,000 military-age males can do. That's larger than the United States Marine Corps by a lot. 235,000 jarheads, 400,000 bad actors that we know of. Other estimates put that closer to 4 million. That's a significant number of people. Have you seen the reports coming out in Great Britain of John from SOE just sent me this the other day, of Connex boxes, Sea Air Land containers filled with weapons being dropped off, sealed, locked up, being dropped off in neighborhoods that are occupied by the Islamic immigrants that they allowed into their country. Why are there boxes of assault rifles and machine guns just being pre-positioned in these neighborhoods? What's happening there? What do you think's going to happen there? What do you think's going to happen here? Why does the IRS need and DHS need a whole bunch of hundreds of thousands of new weapons, billions of rounds of ammunition, hundreds of thousands of body armor and helmets and blowout kits? Why are there Pakistani nationals training in the national forest that adjoins the county that I live in? Oh, they're no threat. They're just in full camis running up and down the side of the mountain with rucksacks on, refusing to interface with law enforcement. Nothing to see here. It'll be fine. Let's go to Target. We'll stop at Starbucks on the way over. I'm going to get me an iced vanilla mocha chocolate. All right. You're also going to get killed in the parking lot by somebody who's been training for this their entire life because you didn't take it seriously. That's what I want you to avoid. This shit is going to come off the rails. I don't want it to. Let me be perfectly clear about that. I don't want it to. I like my little life. I love my family. I love my friends. I don't want it to fall apart, but it's gonna. And when it falls apart, I do not want you to fall apart with it. Repeat, I do not want you to fall apart with it. That is the purpose of this channel. It is to educate, motivate, inspire you to action. Not to anxiety, not to paralysis, not to fear, to action. If you're brand new, go watch the Prepper Classroom. Just put YouTube search bar Prepper Classroom. You'll find it. You're brand new to TCCC, YouTube search bar Trauma Medicine. You'll find our playlist. Watch those things. Or homesteading, or faith, or networking, or commo, or whatever. Go to, dude, Patreon, $10. 5,000 videos, 5,000 in the backlog. What's that, 0.2 cents per video? I'd say that's adequate. I'd say that's a reasonable return on investment. It's all there. We've been documenting everything we've been doing, not talking about doing for the last 7 years at this channel, for when something like this kicks off. And I'm not afraid, but I am deeply concerned about what could go wrong in between now and November. And if you're not taking it seriously, it's going to blindside you and kick your ass. And I don't want that to happen. Voltage divider. Patreon is the best $10 I've ever spent. Bless you. All right, we're going to do the bonus intel. Real quick. If you don't have one of these, get one. RefugeMedical.com for the preservation of life. Made in America, guaranteed forever. There is no better first aid kit. I don't care who says what. They don't exist. I'm well aware of what the air quote competition offers on the market. There is not a better first aid kit. And there's definitely not one that's made in America and guaranteed forever and does the entirety of the March algorithm in one fell swoop. Pull this open, pull this out, pop it open. There's all my stuff. Made in America, guaranteed forever. Everything you need, nothing you don't. And if you don't want a bare fac, get a bare minimum. You don't want a bare minimum, get a bleeding prevention kit. You don't want one of those, get an SOB. You don't want one of those, get an adventure kit. You don't want one of those, get a crash or a smash. You don't want one of those, get a field medic. You don't want one of those, then get a stomp bag. You don't want one of those, then get an ankle kit. You don't want one of those, then get a slick kit. Whatever your methodology of carry is, whatever your size and weight constraints are, whatever your application is, we make a kit for it right here in the United States of America. 131 lives saved to date. Most recent life saved to date was a motor vehicle accident. Another one. 69 of our 131 lives saved. Motor vehicle accidents. The kit that was used in that application was this. This is the small of the back kit. It weighs 1 pound. One loaded AR magazine. It's about that big. Slightly larger than the size of my hand. It mounts on your war belt, your plate carrier, your headrest, your rucksack, your wherever. You got your Committee on TCCC recommended windlass tourniquet on the bottom. Pop this open. Pull the little pouch out. There's all your blowout kit stuff. Chest seals, pressure bandages, wound packing gauze, hemostatics, gloves, airway, Sharpie, etc., etc., etc. Made in America. Guaranteed forever. Literally just saved a life 2 days ago in a motor vehicle accident. It wasn't some crazy jihadis. It wasn't the Russians. It wasn't the Chinese paratroopers. It wasn't a chainsaw injury. It wasn't a workplace injury. It was a motor vehicle accident, which Americans are absolutely stress inoculated too, even though they shouldn't be. There's more than 100,000 motor vehicle accidents each year. It is statistically the most dangerous thing you do as an American. And just based upon the number of kits that we've sold versus the number of lives that we've saved, you have a 1 in 300 chance, a 1 in 300 statistical chance of needing one of these to save a life. I don't know if you know how many days are in the calendar year, but you have a 1 in 300 chance. Please, if you don't have a real first aid kit, get one for the preservation of life. If I wanted to make a ton of money, I'd be in the oil business. I live in Oklahoma. It's not about making a ton of money. Our margins are actually very low on these things. It's about getting good kits in the hands of good people for the preservation of life. Now, Bear Independent, bonus intel. And shout out to Wolf, the guy who saved life number 131. Bless you, brother. All the way from South Africa, the following has been sent in via the wire. 95 Libyans have been arrested at a farm, one farm. 95 Libyans. Well, I got my AR-15 in my bug-out bag. 95 Libyans. Is that a company? Have been arrested at a farm in White River in MP for contravening the Immigration Act. They allegedly misrepresented themselves on visa applications to the South Africans, claiming they were coming to train as security guards. MP police suspect they are receiving military training. Nothing to see here. Everything's fine. 95 Libyans. Where's Libya? North Africa. Borders the Sahel region. It's a bastion of stability and democracy. Yeah. I got a question for you. Have you heard the word Benghazi? Where's Benghazi? Okay. Next, I've been living in a rural part of eastern Washington state for a long time. We have a lot of national intel as well. We often see a lot of Air Force training exercises from the air base east of us, Fairchild. Recently, we've been seeing a very large increase in activity after this recent internet outage, especially night ops. Also hearing more from my brothers in other areas around the PNW, Pacific Northwest. We keep track of all the exercises throughout the years, and we're moving heavy in the last 3 months now. Nearly every weekend, we'll have daytime activity. Maybe once a month will be night ops. Over the last 3 nights, it's been constant. Last night, there were 23 chopper lights off, going nuts. As I'm not ex-military, I'm not sure as to what they're doing other than an increase of training, but even that usually does not mean anything good is coming in the next weeks and months, in my opinion. Next, these are all quotes, by the way. I'm not saying quote over and over again. I was listening to the 911 dispatch calls for Butler County when Trump was shot. The first responders were ordered to stand down and protect themselves because it was a live fire event. So there are times when first responders will be ordered not to assist people in need for their own safety concerns. Okay, pause, time out, interject. I don't know how many times we have to address this on camera, but apparently at least one more time because people don't get it. The vast majority of people think that emergency medical services are going to run into the problem and start rescuing people while the problem is ongoing. That is categorically untrue. It does not work that way. If you know anything about TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, that was adopted over under the civilian side as TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, there's hot zone, warm zone, cool zone, or cold zone. Hot zone means violence is ongoing. And in a hot zone, we do care under fire, where the best medicine we can provide is bullets, aka kill the bad guys. And then the only other medicine we do is tourniquets for self-aid on ourselves if we can. That's it. That's care under fire. So if somebody is shooting, if it's a live fire event, we don't do medicine in that. EMS is not coming in. What about TEMS, Tactical EMS, Emergency Medical Services? Yeah, if there's a TEMS unit, Butler County or Butler PD had what, 3 officers? They definitely don't have a Thames unit. Most of the places where you see Thames units is in major metropolitan areas, and 97% of those Thames units suck shit. They're terrible. They're still not coming in. So EMS does not come into hot zones. Law enforcement has to take the hot zone to a warm zone. That means the violence has stopped, but it could start again. And in a warm zone, this is where we do tactical field care. This is where kits come out, wound packing, pressure bandages, maintaining airways, applying tourniquets, no surgical interventions, none of that. We're not there right now, okay? Because if the warm zone goes hot again, somebody starts shooting again, all medicine stops and we kill bad guys, okay? So medicine doesn't happen in hot zones. Tourniquets is medicine. It's a medical intervention. Wound packing, pressure bandages, chest seals, nasopharyngeal airways, hypothermia mitigation, vitals. All that is in a warm zone. So, of course, EMS didn't go in while the bullets were flying, because EMS doesn't go in when the bullets are flying. EMS doesn't go in when the cars are still smashing into each other, or the buildings are on fire or are crumbling. They don't go in when there's danger, because when it comes to safety protocols, SMARCH-E, safety, scene safety, then massive bleeding, airway, respiratory, circulation, head injury, hypothermia, everything else, expose, elevate, evacuate, and then pause, pain management, antibiotics, wounds, splinting, and all the other acronyms, right? But the first thing is S, which is safety. And the safety priority is me first. Number 1 is me. And then number 2 is my partner. And then number 3 is bystanders. And then number 4 is the casualty. But most people have no idea of this. They've never been trained. They've never come to class at Refuge Medical. They've never even just sat through the free trauma medicine playlist here on my YouTube channel. So they operate with the idea that when bad shit starts to happen, EMS and fire are just going to run in there and solve it. They do not. That is not their job. They don't do that in a hot zone. They only do that in a warm zone. And if a warm zone turns hot again, they stop. They may retreat. So, of course, they didn't run in and do anything when the bullets were flying, because they never do. That's their job. Dontrell January. I did not know civilians knew TCCC or March. That's crazy. It's been so TCCC has been adopted on the civilian side for a decade as TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. It's the same set of principles because the physiology is the same. We all have to circulate blood. We all have to respirate. If I add holes or take away holes from your body, you die. Simple as that. So EMS doesn't run in when bullets are flying. Uvalde, Texas, anybody? Cops don't run in when bullets are flying most of the time. Yeah. So of course they didn't. So get that myopic paradigm out of your head. Nobody is coming to save you. You will be at 100% of your emergencies. You are 100% responsible for your well-being. There is no higher. National EMS response time, 47 minutes. 47 minutes. 47 minutes. That's a lifetime, literally. You got a bleed in the femoral artery, you've been dead for 45 minutes by the time the ambulance gets there, maybe. I'm sorry, but I'm passionate about this stuff because I want good people to make it. And everybody just think, it's going to be fine. We'll call 911. They'll come in here and get us. Not if the bullets are still flying. Not if the cars are still smashing into each other. They're not coming. They don't come in hot zones. Now, continuing. I was listening to the 911 dispatch calls for Butler County when Trump was shot. First responders were ordered to stand down and protect themselves because it was a live fire event. So there are times when first responders will be ordered not to assist people in need for their own safety concerns. Yeah, there will be times. 100% of the time. Everybody needs to understand that. 100% of the time. They will protect themselves over you. because the S in S March E is seen safety, and I am my first responsibility. Anyone can monitor various first responder feeds at broadcastify.com. It is free, but I use the paid version so I can skip the ads in the beginning. I live in fire season country in Oregon and live across the street from the fire station here. When I hear them rolling with sirens, I click on the feed and listen to why they're rolling code 3, which is lights and sirens. That way, if a fire is nearby, I can listen to see if it moves in my direction. This is a great site and has all stations all over the U.S., so you can monitor what is going on in your own area or other parts of the nation anytime as long as the internet is up. We were all out over the CrowdStrike deal, and even the city comms were down here, and they had no idea why. I drove down there and asked them. The service also archives the feed so you can go back and listen to what happened. Thought you might like to know about this service for yourselves and add the fact that sometimes first responders are ordered not to help in certain areas or situations. Yes, again, all the more reason for people to have great first aid kits. Cheers. Thank you. Broadcastify.com. Yeah, have great first aid kits and know how to use them. Possession does not equate to proficiency. If you have a Glock on your hip, or a SIG or a Smith & Wesson or whatever, bougie European pistol you're carrying, but you don't know how to use it, you are part of the problem, not part of the solution. Possession does not equate to proficiency. The time to figure out how to use your first aid kit is not when you need it. That's why we train people. By the way, we have a handful of slots left for the September 1, 2, and 3 classes, Refuge Training. You can go to refugemedical.com to find them. The class that we're doing on Sunday, the 11th, 2 days from now, completely sold out. Sold out in like couple 3 days, something like that. Yes, there will be more class dates being put up, but there's a handful of classes in the September 1, 2, and 3 classes. That's Labor Day weekend. Okay, whatever. You could go to the lake, drink a 30-pack of cheap beer, and squander your life, or you could come to class and learn the fine art of how to not die. Next, I was having an interesting conversation with our plant manager, who is also local volunteer EMS coordinator. He gave me the groundwork on many of our local EMS departments. He said his, like many other local jurisdictions, have only 3 or 4 EMS personnel during first shift, as 80% of the people who are EMS are stable and have a first shift day job. This leaves farmers the occasional off shifter. In addition to that, it is not rare to have to throw a call out to another jurisdiction, adding time as well. In closing, he said, don't do stupid stuff during the week until 6 p.m. because help will come, but it will take quite a bit longer. For reference, we live in a county with 44 people per square mile. Yep. COVID was an inside job. It was an intentional, and it was done to degrade the American society and our American way of life and our quality of life. One of the things that was severely impacted by COVID, to the point that a lot of people are completely unaware of it, blissfully unaware of it, is the medical industry and emergency management, emergency response. There's just, in my county, we have 8 ambulances. 5 of them are down. Still waiting on spare parts. Still. We have a 37.5%. We are at 37.5% of the available ambulances in our county. Yep. Oh, and you know what an EMTB makes to start here? Starting payroll? $12 an hour. We've been on motor vehicle accidents where we've stopped and assisted multiple motor vehicle accidents where the EMTs are asking us what to do next. What do we do now? You're the one who drove here in an ambulance. You don't know? No, they don't know. And just because the ambulance gets there, that might be that person's first day on the job. You ever stop to think about that? I have lived in the Piedmont Triad of Central North Carolina for 35 years. I've lived in several suburban areas, some smaller communities, but also own 10 acres in a farming community an hour outside of town. In addition to the ever-present panhandlers, over the past 4 years, I've started seeing more homeless taking up residence in local wooded patches. A telltale sign of this is the growing number of homeless pushing shopping carts along the larger thoroughfares, some left along busy roads with footpaths into the local wooded areas around nightfall. On a more personal level, I attend the church literally next door to my home, and I was recently alerted by a churchgoer and a neighbor to some unusual foot traffic by the woods directly across from my home and across the street from the church daycare. I informed our security lead. We will be conducting a walkthrough of the wooded area looking for signs of campsites. At that point, it becomes a matter of calling the non-emergency police number. I suspect it would behoove people to maintain vigilance in the neighborhoods and get to know their neighbors. 100%. I agree with that. Morning, everybody in the chat. There's only 1,570 of y'all. I wrote to you in July about power grid issues happening in Minnesota. Yeah, you did. Over the last week and a half, these issues have gotten significantly worse. It's now fairly common for the power to cut off several times per day, often only for a few seconds. For the 24 years I've lived in this area, this has never happened before. I'd be willing to bet this is a symptom of our frail and aging power infrastructure in the United States. Yep. It's also a symptom of the fact that in certain places like Minnesota, you get assholes like Tim Walz, pushing for 100% carbon neutrality by 2040, meaning that your primary generation has been more and more taken offline every year. So you're left to depend upon things that were never intended for primary generation in the first place, like wind and solar, because they're not primary generation, meaning they only work if the conditions are right. Unlike everything else, it's primary generation that works as long as we make water hot. Steam turbines powered by coal or by nuclear or by natural gas or by number 2 diesel fuel or whatever. Steam. It rocks. I spoke with a friend who's worked in a local county courthouse in Ohio for years. I think Ohio. It could be capital O, capital H, but we're going to go with Ohio. He said he can't do his normal job because the computer systems at the courthouse has been down for like 2 weeks. There's a huge backlog that he says will take months to clear once their system is up and running. Currently, his office is doing actual paper. His comment about the sizes of the stacks was almost as interesting as the fact that the top 2 most common crimes were theft and domestic violence. Next, I'm a first responder and military veteran of the Air Force, and I live up here in Kodiak Island in Alaska. I state my bona fides merely for the listeners to have some context on what I observed. As some may have heard from news sources, or if they're followers of S2 Underground's channel, which S2 Underground is a great channel. Shout out to that bro right there. A Chinese bomber had flown into Alaska airspace approximately a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. This activity on its own is not necessarily strange. Being an Alaskan resident, it's not unusual for the Russians to test American airspace and waters. It was a bit strange to hear that it was a Chinese aircraft that had made a foray so close by. Many of us here took it at that and didn't think anything else until this week. Even though it wasn't close to Kodiak, it was close enough to generate some buzz and talk. I'm writing on August 2nd, and I've spent the past 2 days observing F-22 aircraft from JBER in Anchorage, Alaska, have traveled down here conducting various drills. Occasionally, 1 or 2 F-22s will fly to the island, refuel, and head back, maybe do touch and goes. This has been different. 6 aircraft have been on the island flying for hours in long-range patrols. To add to this, an Air Guard reservist unit from East Coast flew all the way here the same week on a C-17. They were transporting a large medical team and said they were practicing mobilizing medical staff and teams to fly to Alaska. This seems strange for many of us because it seemed more logical to mobilize assets from the West Coast. Why mobilize so far away? Now, combined with what I've seen from the past several days and other circumstances, I can confidently say this isn't a coincidence. I think many residents in the town felt it was fun or a good show to see this, but sadly, I think many are missing the mark. I wanted to share this because I literally live on an island in the middle of nowhere, and this snapshot of a global event has reached out and touched us. No one is truly remote enough or isolated enough to not be affected by global events. We're all experiencing our own piece of these interesting times that we live in. Thank you for the intel. I appreciate that. I'm going to pee. You guys can look at this bear fact again real quick. I'll be right back. Did the subliminal messaging work? Did it? Do you know where you're going to get your first aid kits? Good. I live in a small town in east central Kansas called Osawatami. Osawatomi? Osawatami. I believe that's what it is. Osawatami, about 40 miles south of Kansas City. We recently received a letter stating that our water supply was contaminated with a cancer-causing agent. They have been doing chlorine burns for the last 2 years, and last year I emailed the mayor about the infrastructure with no response. This notice came in this year, 2 months after the results came in. The letter states it's not life-threatening and the water is safe to drink still. The water tastes and smells like pure chlorine. My dog won't even drink it, and I don't blame him. We've contacted news agencies about this. It's time to be stepping up preps as I'm behind the curve and I've been in the slow lane. Yeah, public water is A, undependable, B, will all the way go away when the power goes out, and C, has a bunch of things in it that aren't good for us. I'm sorry to hear that, Osatawatamami. Rainwater collection. I know Kansas, we're talking spring and fall probably for rain, but yeah, or wells if you can. It's one of the things on this property that we're on. We very specifically looked for a property that had lots of water. We have 3 wells, 3 creeks, 2 artesian wells, pond, rainwater collection, and rural water all run into this property. I believe we have 11 different water sources, and that's intentional. And my favorite place to get water is in the woods on a ridge. There is a rock that has been split open by a cedar tree. And there's an artesian well that flows from out of the center of that rock down the ridge into one of the creeks. And it's beautiful. It reminds me of where Moses smashed the rock instead of speaking to it, and the water came forth. It's really cool. And the water's incredible. Here in Utah, a number of F-16s were retrofitted at Hill Air Force Base and were flown to Europe last week. Coincidentally, F-16s are now reported as being seen over the skies in Ukraine. A cousin of mine in Arizona said he heard the pilots had been training at Luke Air Force Base since last year. Some of the F-35 Air Wing here at the base was deployed to Romania last year. For obvious reasons, I can't say much, but will add that a friend of mine recently finished a contract to replace the entry gates at Hill Air Force Base with larger, stronger ones. Also, a customer who worked on base alluded that containers of sunshine were being moved out of secure storage. Containers of sunshine. Interesting. What weapons do we have that burn as hot as the sun? You might ask the Japanese. They have a little bit of experience being on the receiving end. In fact, wasn't it the anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing 3 days ago? And isn't today the anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki, August 6th and August 9th, 1945? Every day I pass Camp Williams on my way to work. About 2 weeks ago, I saw something unusual. Several M1 tanks were loaded onto semi-trucks leaving the base. This is not normal. They were painted in woodland camo, so I have a hunch they're going to Eastern Europe. In addition, the base conducted some live fire drills last month, which is not unusual, but this time the noise level was significantly louder than all of the previous ones. Not sure what they're shooting, but the decibel level was noticeably higher. In addition to these things, there's been an uptick in the number of cars commuting to the base compared to years prior. Another data point is the Army helicopter activity here. It's been noticeably higher in the past couple of years, but now instead of the usual Blackhawks, it's more Apache attack helicopters in the skies. AH-64, man, that thing is an awesome, crazy piece of equipment. Out in Lawton, if you've ever been to Lawton, Oklahoma, in the red plateaus around Lawton, you might see some giant fan things called wind turbines. And that is the Red Hills series of projects, Red Hills 1 through 5. They may have Red Hills 1 through 6 now. And I was doing the geotech out there, geotechnical engineering out there for one of those Red Hills projects. We're up on the side of this plateau, and I can hear something. I can hear it. Now I'm standing next to a drilling rig, which makes a bunch of noise and it vibrates, but I can hear something. And I look over off the side of this plateau, which, about 2,000 foot above ground. And this happens. Look at the screen. In my line of sight, I see this. Whoosh. 3 AH-64 Apache helicopters just come up. And they were nose to the edge of the plateau. I was on the edge of the plateau, 50 yards away. 50 yards away, 3 of them. And I look at the lead pilot. I give him the head nod, right? He gives me the wing shake, and they take off perfectly in formation, fly over to this other plateau, release munitions, shoot the ever-loving shit out of the side of the plateau, and then whoosh, they're just gone again. And then we started playing games with each other. It was cool. If you're out there, Apache pilot, bro, you were awesome. We had fun. They would try and sneak up on me, and they were very good at it. And so they would fly down low to the ground using the terrain as cover, and then they would come up and basically ambush our drilling rig. We did this for months. It was great. It's the only thing that made being on top of those plateaus bearable. And then I would see if I could spot them before they got to me, and it was a blast. But what those machines and what those pilots can do with those machines, what they can do, oh man, very impressive. Finally, on 2 recent trips to Southern California, we drove past a USMC depot near Fort Irwin. The first trip was in April, and there were hundreds of FDE vehicles being loaded onto trains, trucks, Humvees, APCs, M2s, and even M1 tanks. During the second trip at the end of May, all those vehicles were gone. Not on trains, not on base. They were obviously shipped eastward to points unknown. That is the national intel. If you have intel you would like to provide to the Bear Nation, intel at bearindependent.com, intel at bearindependent.com, intel at bearindependent.com. Please send what you see with your own eyes and your own ears so we can keep each other informed. That's the show for today. You guys know where to go, what to do. Links are in all the descriptions. Shout out to the patrons. It's $10 a month. You cannot spend a better $10 on the internet. I promise you. Think of it like OnlyFans, but I keep my clothes on and we don't do unrighteousnesses. And instead of being a whore, I teach you like that. Yeah, it's like that. Grindstone, if you want to come on a disaster deployment with us after hurricanes or tornadoes, you can sign up for that at grindstoneministries.com. And if you'd like to be involved in our counter-trafficking efforts, Caleb House, Caleb with a K.org, or if the Spirit convicts you, you'd like to pour into either of those ministries, grindstoneministries.com, Caleb House, Caleb with a K.org, and of course, refugemedical.com. We make everything in America. We guarantee it forever. 131 people are still here because of our kits, which is humbling and amazing. Thank you to everybody who supports everything that we do. I'd be dead in the water without you guys, and I do appreciate you. I don't know why I'm a little worked up this morning, but I am. It's probably a combination of technical difficulties and poor sleep, and my printer wasn't working to print the brief, and then the internet didn't work, and we had to do take 2, and then I don't know. It's just there's a lot going on out there, and to the extent that I can be prepared for it, I am. I mean, constantly improve your position tracking, but for us, like improving our position now looks like let's get more pasture set up for our livestock. Like guys, I have a pallet of wheat in my barn, 2,400 pounds that I got to bucket up, and I haven't really prioritized it because I have so many other pallets of wheat. It's just not even a thing because I've been doing this for 19 years. And I've been talking about it on camera for 7 years. And I don't want good people to perish for no good reason. I want, everybody within the sound of my voice to take this as seriously as they need to. Now, don't take it so seriously that it robs you of your joy, because preparedness is insurance. But I have a feeling we may need that insurance sooner than later based upon everything that I'm seeing out there in the world. And I hope that I am wrong, to be perfectly clear. I hope that I am wrong. And if I am wrong, I will come on this camera and admit that I was wrong with a smile on my face, because I don't want to be right. But hope is not a method. Hope is not a strategy. All I can do is look at the data, look at the indicators, look at history, and make a call. And the call that I'm making for me and my family. Now, you do what you want to do with your family, but for me and my family, it's skinny pedal on the right when it comes to preparedness right now. I think we're going to need this stuff. And I hate that, because I have a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-month-old, and an 87-year-old grandma on property. Bro, I really don't want to be raising children and tending to the elderly in the apocalypse. I don't want to, but just because I don't want that doesn't mean that isn't what's going to happen. And so therefore, I have to be as squared away as I possibly can be to mitigate as much risk as possible based upon the threats that I'm observing. And that's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. Please take it seriously. Because if you just watch this show, you just watch this channel for shits and giggles, but you never act upon it, you're wasting your time and you're wasting mine. Please don't do that. Go do something else. Go spend an hour 15 with somebody else Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you're just going to listen, because it's not profitable for you. Take what I say, take what I do, and put it into action. Make moves. And if you've been bad about making moves, today's the day. Resolve to do better, homie, because shit is weird. And to reiterate, final thought, I'm not afraid of all the weird things. I have concerns, but I'm not afraid of it. The big they want us afraid, because scared people are very easily manipulated. Don't fall for it. Just mitigate yourself, mitigate the damage that they can do to you while they are executing on their fear campaign. That's the goal. That's the big picture. Waiting for the fight is the worst part. Exactly, Striker Cade. I'm like, hey, if we're going to have a fight, let's just have a fight. Let's just go. I was that kid at school and it was like, we're going to fight after class. I was like, how's right now? Let's go. Like, no, I'm not going to let you choose when we're going to have a fight and where we're going to have a fight. No, like, I understood speed, surprise, and violence of action by the 3rd grade. It's like, no, I'm going to kick your ass. Oh, are you? Actually, it looks like you're going to lay on the ground. That's what it looks like you're going to do. So, let's pray. Oh, Father, yeah, I don't know why you love us. I don't know why you love me. But I'm thankful that you do. I'm thankful that your ways are not our ways, and that you find good reason to invest yourself in us, to pour out your spirit on us, to bleed and die for us that we might come home again. I do not understand it, but I thank you for it. I pray that you would steward us in such a way that we live up to the potential of the person that you fearfully and wonderfully made us to be before we were formed in the womb. that we might live as closely to your expectations for us as possible in this life. Father, I pray that you just remove all the distractions and that your will would be made manifest, that you would restore us exactly to the life path that you had in mind for us, that you would put us where we're supposed to be, that you would give us your words, that we would operate on a conviction from your Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit, Father, that as time grows short in whatever season we're in, that we wouldn't waste that precious time on things that are meaningless. Father, help us learn to love you better. Help us learn to love our neighbors better, to be better fathers and husbands and sons of you. Father, please continue to teach us. Please continue to walk with us. Forgive us of all of our shortcomings. Let us be like children just seated in your lap, learning at the foot of the Master. Father, thank you for the very opportunity to just wake up today. Thank you for tarrying with us even when we're not our best selves and seeing something in us that we don't see in ourselves. Thank you that you are a good Father, that you are the perfect Father, even for those of us that may not have had the perfect earthly Father. And thank you for all the lessons that you've taught us through all the pain and the trial and the tribulations, that there was blessing and opportunity on the other side of it. Thank you for the refining of the dross from the silver, that we might come closer to being who it is that you made us to be in the first place. Father, Yah, please protect these people today. Please provide for them today. Father, please bless them today. Father, if there's anything within the sound of my voice that's not of you, I rebuke it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach and command it to flee. Father, put a hedge around your most precious people. Let us serve and honor and fear only you. And Father, bonk us in the head if we get off track. Please reprove and instruct those that you love. Father, please see us today. Make your face to shine upon us today as we do our absolute best to remember you. Thank you for the atoning sacrifice of Yeshua and a way to come home again and a model to walk in. Father, I pray these things in Yeshua's name. Amen. All right, now I'm going to go shoot a sheep in the face and gut it. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Shalom.